Picture this. Right now, somewhere in the UK, a car is drifting half a second too long without anyone's eyes on the road. That half a second is all it takes. Every single day, hundreds of people across Britain get into a crash that didn't have to happen. Not because the roads are cursed, not because cars are unsafe, but because of a handful of very human, very preventable mistakes that keep repeating themselves year after year on motorways, country lanes, and high streets all over this country. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the real reasons UK roads turn dangerous, and honestly, some of these numbers might shock you. Let's start with the scale of the problem, because it's bigger than most people realize. In the most recent full year of data, the UK recorded over 1,600 road deaths, nearly 30,000 serious injuries, and well over 128,000 casualties in total. That's not a typo. That's roughly one death every 5 hours, somewhere on British roads. The good news is that fatalities have been falling slowly for years. The bad news is that the number of people seriously injured has barely moved in over a decade. Behind every one of those numbers is a person, a family, a moment that changed everything in an instant. So what's actually causing all of this? Let's break it down. The single biggest factor, by a wide margin, is us, human error. Department for Transport data shows that driver or rider behavior and inexperience is logged as a contributing factor in roughly 3 out of every 4 reported accidents. Not mechanical failure, not potholes, not freak weather. Us. The decisions we make behind the wheel, second by second, are the number one reason UK roads turn dangerous. And if you zoom in on what that actually looks like in practice, one cause stands head and shoulders above the rest: simply failing to look properly. It's logged in around 38% of all reported collisions, making it the single most common contributing factor recorded by police at the scene. Think about that. Not speeding, not drink driving, just not looking. A driver pulling out of a junction without checking properly, a glance away for 1 second too long, someone assuming the road is clear because it usually is. This is the unglamorous, unsexy, totally avoidable cause sitting at the very top of the list, and it should make every single one of us think twice before we pull away from a junction without a proper look. Next up, speed. It's involved in around 42% of accidents, and it's one of those factors that doesn't just cause crashes, it makes them far more deadly when they happen. The faster a car is traveling, the less time a driver has to react, the longer it takes to stop, and the more violent the impact when something goes wrong. Interestingly, this isn't just about drivers blasting down motorways at silly speeds. A huge number of speed-related crashes happen on ordinary roads, where someone simply misjudges how fast they're going for the conditions, the bend, or the junction ahead. Speed limits exist because someone, somewhere, already worked out the maths. Ignoring them rewrites the odds against you. Then there's distraction, and this one has exploded in the last decade thanks to one device in particular. Mobile phones, whether it's glancing at a text, checking a notification, or worse, actually scrolling while driving, phone use behind the wheel takes your eyes off the road for far longer than most people think. Studies have shown that texting while driving can take your attention away for several seconds at a time, and at motorway speeds, that's the equivalent of driving the length of several football pitches with your eyes closed. It sounds dramatic because it is dramatic. Distraction doesn't always show up clearly in the official statistics because it overlaps heavily with failing to look properly, but make no mistake, it's one of the most preventable killers on UK roads today. Now let's talk about something that's been a target of road safety campaigns for decades, but still claims lives every single year: drink and drug driving. Around 300 people are killed in drink-drive collisions in Great Britain annually, accounting for roughly 18% of all road deaths. In one recent year alone, an estimated 6,800 people were killed or injured in crashes where a driver was over the limit. And here's the part that should worry everyone. Recent surveys suggest the problem may actually be getting worse among younger drivers, with a noticeable rise in under 25s admitting to driving while over the legal alcohol limit compared to just a year earlier. Decades of advertising, decades of warnings, and people are still getting behind the wheel after drinking. It remains one of the most stubborn, most preventable causes of death on UK roads. Let's talk about who's actually most at risk: because the statistics here are genuinely surprising. Drivers age 17 to 29 make up the highest share of casualties of any age group, accounting for around 28% of all road casualties, despite being a relatively small slice of total license holders. Inexperience is the obvious explanation. New drivers haven't yet built the instinct for spotting danger early, judging gaps, or recognizing when a situation is about to turn dangerous. But here's the twist. Young drivers, despite having more crashes overall, tend to have less severe outcomes than you might expect, representing a smaller share of fatalities than of total casualties. Meanwhile, drivers in their 30s and 40s account for the highest share of deaths of any age group, largely because they tend to drive more miles, more often on faster rural roads, where a serious mistake has far deadlier consequences. And then there's the gender gap, which is honestly one of the starkest figures in all of UK road safety data. Men account for around 76% of all road deaths and roughly 61% of all accidents. That's not a small skew, that's a massive one. Higher mileage, a greater tendency toward risk-taking behavior, and higher rates of drink driving convictions among men all feed into this gap. It's one of the most consistent patterns in road safety statistics anywhere in the world, and the UK is no exception. Now let's talk about where these crashes actually happen, because it's not where most people assume. Motorways carry around a fifth of all traffic in the UK, yet they account for only around 6% of fatalities. That seems backwards until you think about why. Motorways are designed for speed, with separated carriageways, no oncoming traffic, and controlled entry and exit points. They're actually one of the safest types of road per mile traveled. The real danger zone is the ordinary single carriageway A and B road, the kind that twists through the countryside with no central barrier, blind bends, and oncoming traffic just feet away. The vast majority of fatal collisions happen on exactly these kinds of roads, the ones that feel familiar and harmless precisely because we drive them every single day. Let's not forget the most vulnerable people on the road, the ones with the least protection around them. Motorcyclists make up only around 1% of total road traffic, yet they account for over a fifth of all road deaths. Think about that ratio for a second. 1% of traffic, 20% of deaths. Pedal cyclists face a similar story, with dozens of deaths and well over 1,000 serious injuries every year, almost always in collisions with motor vehicles many times their size and weight. Pedestrians too remain at constant risk, particularly in towns and cities, where a moment's distraction from a driver can have devastating consequences for someone simply trying to cross the road. There's also a smaller but still important cause hiding near the bottom of the list. Vehicle defects, things like worn tires, faulty brakes, or failing lights, contribute to a relatively small proportion of serious and fatal crashes, somewhere around 1%. It's small, but it's also entirely avoidable. A 5-minute tire check or remembering to get that warning light looked at could be the difference between a normal Tuesday and a life-changing accident. It's a quiet reminder that road safety isn't only about how we drive, it's also about what we're driving. And of course, there's the weather. Wet roads, ice, fog, and poor visibility don't appear as often in the raw numbers as human error does. But when conditions turn bad, the consequences tend to turn severe. Winter months in particular see fewer total collisions overall, simply because fewer people are out on the roads, but a noticeably higher proportion of those collisions end up being serious or fatal. Slower reaction times, longer stopping distances, and reduced visibility combine in exactly the way you'd expect, turning a manageable situation into a dangerous one in seconds. So what does all of this actually add up to? The picture that emerges from the data isn't really about faulty roads or faulty machines. It's about human behavior, repeated millions of times a day across the country, not looking properly, driving too fast for the conditions, picking up a phone for just a second, getting behind the wheel after one drink too many, underestimating a road we've driven 100 times before. None of these are exotic or unusual causes. They're ordinary, everyday lapses that almost every driver has been guilty of at some point, and that's exactly why they're so dangerous. They don't feel risky in the moment. They just feel normal, right up until the moment they aren't. There is some genuinely encouraging news here too. The UK government has now set out a new road safety strategy with a target of cutting the number of people killed or seriously injured by 65% by 2035. Better driver assistance technology is becoming standard in new cars. Smarter data is being used to identify the most dangerous stretches of road, and awareness campaigns continue to chip away at habits like drink driving and phone use. Countries like Norway prove that sustained investment and consistent enforcement really can move the needle over time. The trend is moving in the right direction. It's just moving slowly, and slow progress costs lives along the way. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that the biggest danger on UK roads isn't some rare, unpredictable event. It's the small, routine decisions we all make behind the wheel every single day. Looking properly before you pull out, putting the phone away, respecting the speed limit, especially on those ordinary country roads that feel safer than they really are, never driving after a drink. These aren't complicated fixes. They're simple habits that, multiplied across millions of journeys every day, could genuinely save thousands of lives a year. If this opened your eyes to something you didn't know about the roads you drive on every day, that's exactly why I make this content. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next deep dive. Drop a comment letting me know which one of these stats shocked you the most, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe out there.